We often talk about artificial intelligence as a binary threat. It is either coming for all of our jobs or none of them. But that way of looking at the economy misses what is actually happening on the ground. Classical economic models fail to predict modern labor trends because they treat an occupation like a single monolithic block. Labor economists look at work through the task assignment model. Instead of looking at whole jobs, this model breaks an occupation down into a diverse continuum of individual tasks. When AI enters an industry, it doesn't replace the entire worker. It targets and absorbs very specific, routine data processing nodes within that workflow. When those routine tasks are automated, we see something called the reinstatement effect. This is an economic phenomenon where technological progress simultaneously creates entirely new, highly complex tasks. By taking over the repetitive mathematical components, AI actually elevates the cognitive demands of the tasks left for humans. Artificial intelligence is a resource allocation protocol. It shifts exactly what is expected of human workers and alters power dynamics between employee and employer. Take medical imaging. Reading an X-ray or an MRI relies heavily on visual pattern recognition. Because deep learning algorithms are highly efficient at detecting anomalies in visual data, early forecasts assumed radiologists would simply be automated out of existence. But clinical environments have adopted a hybrid intelligence model. AI models are brittle, meaning they can easily break down or produce severe errors when faced with data outside their training parameters. Combine that with strict legal frameworks that hold human physicians liable for patient outcomes, and algorithms cannot act alone. Instead, the radiologist collaborates with these diagnostic tools, elevating their role into something closer to a highly leveraged medical director. Contrast that with commercial long-haul trucking. Here, the corporate goal is absolute human replacement to maximize capital efficiency. But autonomous driving software still struggles with unpredictable edge cases, like complex urban environments or sensor degradation during a heavy rainstorm. Because the technology is not ready to drive the truck completely, logistics corporations are using partial AI assistance to change the rules of the job. By claiming that driver assistance software reduces physical and mental stress, these companies are actively lobbying federal agencies to dismantle established fatigue management regulations. They want to extend the maximum allowable driving hours, extracting more physical labor from the human operator. Whether an algorithm leads to a higher salary and better tools, or intense job insecurity, depends almost entirely on the specific technical, ethical, and legal barriers protecting those individual tasks. If these algorithmic systems are massively increasing our overall economic productivity, you might wonder why we have not achieved the vastly reduced work week that economists predicted decades ago. Sociologists point to the hypothesis of meaningless employment, the idea that a large portion of the service economy exists primarily to sustain bloated systems of managerial oversight. And integrating generative AI into the workplace introduces a counterintuitive complication known as efficient inefficiency. Instead of eliminating redundant administrative roles, AI often generates sprawling new ecosystems of performative oversight. Knowledge workers spend their days chaperoning software models. They engineer complex prompts, complete manual shadow work, and meticulously verify algorithmic outputs just to satisfy new corporate compliance mandates. While billions of dollars flow into building the infrastructure for this algorithmic bureaucracy, the economy continues to financially undervalue essential, physically demanding care work. Nursing, early childhood education, and elder support require deep human empathy and complex physical manipulation, skills algorithms cannot replicate. Rather than optimizing for actual societal well-being and rewarding essential human interaction, modern economies frequently deploy artificial intelligence to expand vast architectures of spiritually vacant administrative labor. In the global gig economy and physical logistics networks, we are seeing the resurrection of industrial scientific management. This is a system called digital Taylorism. Traditional Taylorism sought to maximize factory efficiency by desk-skilling workers and strictly separating cognitive planning from physical execution. Digital Taylorism supercharges this by replacing human supervisors with ubiquitous tracking systems. Workers navigate an autonomy paradox. They are legally classified as independent contractors with theoretical flexibility, but they are functionally bound by opaque algorithmic control mechanisms that dictate their every economic action. fall below an arbitrary algorithmic rating threshold, and you can face automated termination without any human review. This intense micromanagement extends deep into massive e-commerce fulfillment centers. These warehouses rely on an architecture called chaotic storage. Instead of grouping similar items together, inventory is placed randomly across the facility, based entirely on the logic of centralized logistics algorithms. By randomizing the inventory, the software intentionally strips the human worker of spatial knowledge. You cannot rely on your own intuition to find a product. You are entirely dependent on digital instructions via handheld scanners, rendering your physical labor easily replaceable. The psychological consequences of this pervasive surveillance are severe. Workers are subjected to continuous tracking mechanisms that measure their every physical movement against aggressive algorithmic productivity quotas. Even minor deviations are flagged as time off task, inducing chronic workplace stress and eroding perceived job autonomy. Recognizing this toll, legislative bodies are beginning to formulate regulatory responses. In jurisdictions like Quebec, new legal frameworks require employers to conduct privacy impact assessments and disclose the specific parameters influencing automated human resource decisions. While transparency is a necessary first step, algorithmic management still deliberately weaponizes information asymmetry, transforming human beings into biological extensions of machine networks. Because artificial intelligence permanently alters the power dynamics between capital and labor, the welfare state architectures constructed during the industrial era are structurally obsolete. Economists and sociologists are evaluating radical macroeconomic interventions. One highly prominent framework is Universal Basic Income, or UBI. UBI is the direct provision of a regular, unconditional cash transfer to every citizen. The goal is to decouple physical survival from exploitative wage labor. This chart shows the results from a major basic income pilot conducted in southern Ontario. It reveals a statistically negligible decline in overall labor market participation. Instead of abandoning the workforce in mass, participants used the unconditional cash as a sort of modern strike fund. They proactively improved their circumstances, leading to significant upward spikes in self-reported mental health, superior nutritional intake, and higher educational enrollment. However, UBI faces substantial criticism. Progressive economists argue that injecting vast amounts of unconditional capital into a market economy without addressing supply-side constraints risks severe inflationary pressures, particularly in highly inelastic sectors like housing and healthcare. From this critique emerges the alternative macroeconomic framework of universal basic services. Instead of relying on market mechanisms funded by individual cash transfers, UBS advocates for the collective, direct public provisioning of life essentials, expanding traditional boundaries to fully encompass social housing, public transit, and digital broadband access. Proponents argue that expanding these universal services is a highly efficient and ecologically sustainable method of mitigating technological poverty. By directly meeting human needs through robust public networks, the system naturally resists market inflation while reinforcing deep social solidarity. Securing human dignity in an automated world does not happen automatically. It requires actively choosing to build a robust, politically resilient social contract that values collective well-being over pure algorithmic efficiency. The prevailing narrative in the technology industry treats artificial intelligence as a tool built to swap out human workers for algorithms. Standard labor economics often fails to explain the reality of this transition because it treats occupations as monolithic, indivisible entities. The task-based framework models production as a continuum of discrete tasks allocated to humans or machines based on comparative advantage. Automation triggers a displacement effect as algorithms take over routine mathematical components. Simultaneously, a reinstatement effect creates new, complex tasks where human cognitive flexibility excels. Artificial intelligence operates as a structural reallocation tool. It absorbs specific routine components while elevating the complexity of the remaining human tasks. This specific framework explains why AI integration raises wages for certain highly skilled professions while increasing the precarity of others. We can see this divergence by comparing two professions, the clinical radiologist and the commercial truck driver. In clinical radiology, a hybrid model has emerged. Algorithms handle the synthesis of diagnostic data, allowing radiologists to process higher volumes safely. Ethical barriers prevent complete replacement. Since legal frameworks require physicians to maintain moral accountability, the radiologist is augmented, leveraging a rising skill premium. Commercial truck drivers face a different reality. While autonomous driving faces technical hurdles like sensor degradation in snow or rain, the threat to drivers comes from aggressive regulatory reconfiguration by logistics corporations. Corporations use AI assistance systems to lobby against fatigue management laws. By claiming these tools reduce driver exhaustion, they attempt to legally extend driving hours and extract greater labor value from the operator. Power structures determine the impact of these technologies. They use AI to either protect a worker's autonomy or systematically dismantle their legal protections. If machine learning has increased aggregate economic productivity, the workforce should have achieved a shorter work week. The meaningless employment hypothesis suggests otherwise. It posits that a large portion of the service economy exists only to sustain systems of managerial oversight. Utilitarian logic suggests AI would eliminate this administrative bloat, but organizational reality often produces efficient inefficiency. Algorithmic integration generates sprawling ecosystems of performative oversight. An AI decision node creates new requirements for human intervention, patching software errors and generating compliance documentation. Knowledge workers are trapped in loops of shadow work, chaperoning software models and verifying outputs without adding tangible economic value. This expansion of algorithmic bureaucracy contrasts with the economic undervaluation of essential care work. Skills in nursing or early childhood education are vital and difficult to automate, yet they remain underfunded. Capitalism optimizes the automation of meaningful human interaction while relegating humans to the supervision of automated bureaucracy. This labor reconfiguration extends to the physical environment of the global gig economy and logistics networks. Traditional industrial scientific management sought to maximize efficiency by dis-skilling workers and separating cognitive planning from physical execution. Modern platforms have resurrected these principles as digital Taylorism. Digital scaffolds monitor and discipline workers in real time through continuous data extraction. Gig workers experience an autonomy paradox, legally independent contractors bound by opaque algorithms and automated termination. In fulfillment centers, chaotic storage systems place inventory randomly. Central routing algorithms draw highly optimized, erratic paths dictating the workers' physical movements. This dispossesses workers of spatial knowledge, turning their bodies into biological extensions of the robotic system, penalized for deviating from efficiency quotas. Legislative bodies are responding to the resulting workplace stress. Jurisdictions like Quebec now require transparency for automated decision-making and rigorous privacy impact assessments. Mandated transparency is a necessary precondition for fairness, but it does not dismantle the structural power imbalances of algorithmic management. Platforms continue to extract surplus value from precarious workers. As AI transforms labor markets and expands precarity, industrial-era welfare frameworks are proving inadequate. Two frameworks have been proposed to address this vulnerability: universal basic income and universal basic services. Universal basic income provides unconditional cash transfers to every citizen. By decoupling survival from wage labor, it increases a worker's bargaining leverage against exploitative employment. Pilot data from Southern Ontario shows functional reallocations of time towards skill acquisition and mental health, avoiding labor market abandonment. Critics argue that injecting unconditional capital into the market could trigger inflation in inelastic sectors like housing and healthcare. The alternative, universal basic services, prioritizes the direct public provisioning of essentials like housing, transit, and broadband to decommodify survival. The future of social support may require a synthesis: unconditional income guarantees paired with robust public infrastructure to build political resilience. Artificial intelligence functions as a tool for institutional restructuring. It is embedded within the political economy, meaning that any effort to prioritize human flourishing requires a firm political commitment to human dignity over pure algorithmic efficiency.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, like, and share, and don't forget to hit the bell for more from Tech AI and beyond.